In my hand I hold the new Steam Deck OLED, which Valve just released 2 weeks ago. And as someone who has been praising them for supporting Linux as a gaming platform, it's really about time. In comparison to the old model, the new Steam Deck OLED comes of course with a much better screen that now also goes up to 90Hz for that smooth gameplay. You also get a bigger battery and a more energy efficient APU, which provides you with more gaming hours in one sitting. And it even performs slightly better due to an increase of memory bandwidth. Now, while that might sound like a complete hardware revision, it still basically performs the same. And this makes the old model even more affordable, since Valve cut the price of them quite drastically. Anyway, I've been using my Steam Deck for about a week now, and there are definitely some things that we need to talk about. So first of all, why now and not earlier? Well, even though I always found the deck appealing as a gaming device, I have a Nintendo Switch with quite a lot of games. So my game library was always divided into a more portable version and my PC games, which I usually play on a mouse and keyboard. Pair that with a Surface Pro 7 Plus and I basically had all bases covered. But now, with the new revision and especially that 90Hz OLED display, I re-evaluated the deck as an option for me. Currently, I do want to replay the GTA 5 campaign, finish The Witcher 3 and I'm currently even playing the Sonic Frontiers DLC, which does play quite nicely on a controller. I also visited a LAN party this year, just as a visitor, but I was thinking, having a PC like the Steam Deck would be perfect for such a scenario. And yeah, Valve dropped their announcement and I could finally be sure that they really weren't making any huge performance revisions, and I ordered mine day one. Yes, I bought my Steam Deck because I wanted to make this review as honest as possible. The OLED screen and 90Hz are just great, and I can't really believe that a handheld now has the best looking image quality of all of my devices. Setting up the deck was easy with just scanning a QR code and I basically started downloading games right away. What I really like about the deck in comparison to Linux in general is that you don't even need to manually enable Proton. It just works out of the box. However, what doesn't work out of the box is battery life. Now, even though the Steam Deck has a revised APU and a bigger battery capacity, one thing still needs to be clear. This is a handheld PC and not a traditional console like the Switch or an Xbox. That means that by default, games basically run unhinged up to the refresh rate limit. I played Sonic Frontiers for a while and after around 2 hours I noticed that I was down to 20% already. Turning on the performance graph revealed that Sonic Frontiers actually seems to be a quite taxing game, which doesn't even manage to hit 60 FPS on average. So I basically just drained my battery really fast because the deck was struggling to keep up. Limiting the frame rate to 40 FPS not only made the game feel way smoother due to better frame pacing, but it also was way less taxing on the battery and I could easily squeeze out another 1 to 2 hours of gameplay. If you already have a Steam Deck or plan to get one, then you should definitely monitor your game's performance and lock the frame rate if necessary to get a well-balanced experience. By the way, Valve just recently unified the frame rate and refresh rate control, which sometimes leads to a higher refresh rate on the OLED to keep the frame pacing in place. You can either revert this in the settings to get the old sliders back, or just tinker around a bit and find a setting that is a good compromise. Just make sure that you stay above 60 Hz if you can, since 30 FPS on a 60 Hz display still feels a lot more responsive than on 30 Hz. That being said, while for maximum battery life you definitely want to limit your frame rate, that doesn't mean that the Steam Deck can't handle high FPS games as well. Apex Legends, for example, manages to run above 60 FPS on the deck and can even maintain that frame rate in more taxing fights. In fact, if you have the Steam Deck dock or a similar accessory, it can even handle up to 1080p, which is quite impressive actually. One thing that I like to mention here is, if a game has the option to dynamically reduce its resolution to maintain frame rate, then you're better off deactivating it and using the deck's inbuilt FSR instead, since it can add a lot of latency depending on how the game implemented it. With FSR enabled, I could even play Apex Legends docked to my 1440p monitor, and while the experience and frame rate wasn't of course comparable to my 6800 XT setup, it was very playable and I didn't feel like I had that big of a disadvantage. For a LAN party scenario, I was also curious about the current state of Counter-Strike 2, and even with the slightly faster OLED, the game still seems to underperform and struggles to maintain 60 FPS in deathmatch on Dust 2. Anyway, other games perform really well, especially if we consider that the Steam Deck is not really meant as a stationary device. And it kinda shows if you want to use it that way. In GameScope, for example, if you launch a game, you shouldn't forget to change the resolution in the game's properties, or otherwise you will be locked at max 720p. But otherwise you could use it that way. In fact, it can even replace your PC if you switch to desktop mode. And this mode is something that we need to discuss, because you definitely need to make sure to set a pin. That's right, if you use your Steam Deck as a PC and you don't set a pin here, by default your desktop would be accessible to anyone if they get their hands on it. Not really ideal. But besides that, what you get is a regular KDE Plasma desktop where you can install browsers, other game launchers or whatever else you would need on a portable computer. I myself use Bottles to install and add non-Steam games to Steam, but there are some limitations. For once, SteamOS root file system is read-only to protect it from users breaking it. Therefore, you can't install Arch native packages by default, and the software store shows basically just Flatpaks. Another limitation of this is that if you want to install containerized applications like DaVinci Resolve, installing DistroBox on SteamOS is possible, but you need to follow additional steps so that your container doesn't get removed in the next update. Another thing that I would recommend you that you use whenever you're in desktop mode is a keyboard. While SteamOS provides a touchscreen one, I find it extremely non-intuitive to use. Like you can't even jump between characters unless you use the touchscreen, the touchpads or the control stick, since it's not mapped to any button. The whole keyboard essentially behaves a lot different from other consoles, which basically makes muscle memory built over years completely obsolete. Oh yeah, and custom application launchers also overlap it, making it useless for them. Valve, please fix. Otherwise, yeah, it's a desktop. What else do you expect? I gotta say, I'm really impressed with the deck's performance. Especially Apex blew me away, and if CS2 got a bit more love, maybe the deck can actually be a good substitute for a LAN party, or if you're out of town for a while. Especially if you have like a huge library of games to choose from, then the Steam Deck is probably your best choice here. Its price to performance ratio is insane, even more with the OLED model now, and Proton has become so good that if no anti-cheat shenanigans come along, you can already play most games. And that's kind of insane actually. So, was my money worth it? We'll see, we'll see. My Steam Deck is supposed to become my main go-to handheld machine, no matter if I sit in a plane, train or at a remote desk. It is also my personal streaming machine. Steam Link is of course supported, meaning that you can stream games from a more powerful PC if you want to. I'm definitely trying to do that as well. If you've liked this video, then please make sure to show it with a like, and why not also subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one. If you want to help this channel grow and access special emotes and ad-free experience and much more, then also make sure to check out our new membership program in the description down below. I really appreciate your help and thanks for watching.